This is the Toyota Innova Hycross, and there are a couple of important things that you need to know before this car completely starts making sense to you. For all intents and purposes, this is a brand new generation of the Toyota Innova, but it does not replace the Innova Crysta that we've had since 2016. In fact, the Toyota Innova Crysta diesel itself will also be making a comeback, most likely in 2023 once we've seen the BS 6.2 upgrades implemented. The reason why it's sort of difficult to replace the Crysta with the Hycross is because outside of that Innova name, both these MPVs have next to nothing in common. So why is it that I say that these two MPVs are so different? Well, it's because the Hycross is based on a monocoque chassis. The Crysta is based on a ladder frame chassis. The Hycross powers the front wheels only, while the Innova Crysta is rear wheel drive only. And while with this, you will be getting a naturally aspirated 2-liter petrol engine as well as a 2-liter strong hybrid. That hybrid engine in case is not just very powerful, it's also very efficient. With the Innova Crysta, you have a 2.7-liter naturally aspirated petrol and a diesel engine which will be making a comeback as mentioned before. See, extremely different. So the hybrid, that is obviously going to be the mainstay of the Innova Hycross, and you have two engine options as mentioned before. The hybrid is going to make about 186 horsepower, so just short of 190, while the non-hybrid that makes 174. Both engines are only going to be available with an automatic transmission. That's an eCVT with the hybrid and a regular CVT with the non-hybrid. The cool thing over here is not just the efficiency, because the strong hybrid that delivers a claimed efficiency of about 21.1 kilometers per liter. That's with a petrol hybrid, while the output over here is not just impressive enough to look good on paper, it's also supposedly got a sub 10 second 0 to 100 kph time. That's with the strong hybrid though. Alright, so now that we've got all that context setting out of the way, let's jump right into the car itself. Now, the first thing a lot of people would assume that if you're moving from a ladder frame chassis to a monocoque, that is going to become less intimidating, more compact, more urban. And obviously, it's supposed to. They've actually managed to save about 200 kilograms of weight with this particular car by making that shift. But the first thing that strikes you about the Innova Hycross is this thing actually looks a lot more intimidating, a lot more SUV-like than the Innova Crysta. So if you look at this front end, tell me you aren't seeing bits and pieces of the Fortuner over here in this front end and the raised flat sort of bonnet, and even bits of the Hilux that you can see over here in the headlights. These, by the way, are multi-reflector LED headlights, and down below is what you will spot where the indicators are. So they're not dynamic turn indicators, but you will have these complete slits over here. And biggest of all is, of course, this front grille looks very imposing and definitely does a lot to make the Hycross look a lot more, well, badass. And down below, very cleanly integrated, you can spot these fog lamps. And I do apologize because as we've seen in a lot of these launch events, it's next to impossible to get the cleanest possible shot of these cars, but I'll do my best to get you into the details. Now drop down below and take a look at these 18-inch alloy wheels. If I'm not mistaken, these are actually a size larger than the largest ones that you get with the Crysta. With the lower variants though, they're going to be going with 17s and 16s possibly in the base variant. Oh, I should mention, so the variant list, you've got the G, you've got the GX, and these are going to be specific to the non-hybrid petrol, and there's the VX and the GX that will be specifically offered with the strong hybrid. With the G, the GX and the VX, you will have 7 and 8-seater options. With the ZX though, that's probably going to go down just the captain's seat weight, and something more unique than just the captain's seats when it comes to the Hycross. Over to the side, you will spot these wing mirrors with integrated indicators, and this is not just some awkward plastic bulbs. This is actually where the surround view camera is going to be integrated. And if you get the hybrid variant, obviously you have to flex a little bit, so you can see the hybrid badging down there. Take a look at the door, rather generous opening, and drop to the back. And tell me one thing, some of you may have already noticed this in fact, but a lot of the design inspiration, the basic stance of the car does seem to draw some amount of inspiration from the Toyota Highlander. Those of you who are watching from the Middle East, give me a shout out if you think that this is right and you agree. Now, let's jump over here, take a look at these very unique looking taillights. Definitely nothing similar to what we've seen with the Crysta in the past. And while you do have a soft close boot with the Crysta, this is powered. Does make that very noisy, annoying beep every time you do it. I'm assuming it's for safety, but yeah, there you go. Now this is the boot space available with all the seat rows occupied, but I have to admit this is not the most comfortable seat setting. So let me drop it down a little bit. Yeah, this is something that's going to be more comfortable, at least for adults. And even so, I can safely say you can fit in like a trolley bag, medium-sized trolley bag, maybe a duffel bag in the back over here. and a little bit of storage space down here. You'll see the stepney, jack, all that stuff over here, and this nice little flap that covers up the point to drop the spare tire that is of course integrated down below. And unlike the Innova Crysta, of course, the biggest advantage with this particular vehicle is that you do not have those flip up type of third row seats. So if I want to drop these down, bear with me for a second, so you can drop these completely flat. So that of course eliminates not just a blind spot for the driver, but it also enables a lot more clean storage area whenever you want to move a lot more luggage aside from just people. Now the interior of the car is kind of occupied, so I'm going to give you a better look later on. But one important thing to notice, just like the Crysta, you do have a proper headrest over here as well as a 3-point seat belt for the middle row occupant. Now hang on for a second while we get into the interior. Alright, so we've now finally got time to access the second row, and before I show you my fashion model to display what the Innova Hycross is capable of, a quick run through of what the second row is like. So now this, as you can see, is the 7-seater variant, which means you've got 3 at the back, 2 over here, 2 in front. Now in here you will spot that individually the seats do have their own armrests that will of course fold up if needed. Now this bit right here is the cup holder plus whatever tablet or phone or something you can place, and it's not obviously placed in that way. You can roll it up if you want to, but for convenience obviously you can fold it down if the third row passenger needs to get in without adjusting these second row seats. And speaking of them, take a look at this beautiful leatherette upholstery and the lovely quilting on top of it. And yes, the ottoman is one of the biggest features with this, the Innova Hycross. So what does that mean? That means that one, the backrest will be adjusted from here. Yes, that function is electrical. And on those times that you're spending 3 hours going for 10-kilometer drives in Mumbai's peak hour traffic, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy this extendable leg rest. And yes, that is there for both this seat as well as the seat that's behind the driver. Now, meet our guy who's been entertaining you a lot on our social media channels, Akshit. So, how do you get into the back? That is by pulling on that lever right there. And you can, as mentioned before, get in through the middle as well. Now technically speaking, yes, they do call this a space that's going to seat 3, but honestly speaking, for adults at least 2 people, that's about as good as it gets. Akshat, what do we have in terms of amenities? We got cup holders. I see a 12-volt socket as well as some storage over there. Is there any USB charger anywhere? I don't think, right? No. Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it.
Sorry, but this seating position is just a little bit awkward. But yeah, this is supposed to seat, let's say, 2 adults, maybe 3 kids at the back, and it does seem like a reasonably comfortable space. In fact, what I'm going to do is, can you spot Arun around? How about you set up the second row seat as per your comfort?
Oh, should we be kind to Akshit?
I mean, yeah, for the purposes of this video at least, let's...
Okay, that is with Akshit squished. I've got...
Okay, no, not Alishan mode, regular human mode. Okay, the backrest, can you adjust it? Will that make it more comfortable?
Sure.
There you go. And Akshit, take this phone. Let the people see what your knee room is like. So, yeah, actually quite comfortable for adults, isn't it?
Okay, one thing I want to point out, Tushar, if you can just zoom towards my feet. You see there's a battery pack here, so foot room here is kind of tighter. In fact, I can say that about that seat as well. So I think you'd end up sitting a little further behind than you'd like and use that as a footrest.
That does make a lot of sense. And since we are talking about amenities in the back, first of all, panoramic sunroof. That's a big deal. And in spite of that, they have got roof mounted AC vents at the back. And aside from seatbelt pockets, you do have this little baggage hook over here. In the middle, you will see a separate zone of climate control for the rear passengers. Where are the third row vents? They're also on the roof, aren't they? And you do have 2 Type-C, if I'm not mistaken, Type-C USB chargers. Go ahead and switch that off. And you've got a lot of soft touch material used on the door. Really makes the entire feel really premium, and nicely integrated sliding type sunshades as well. So as practical as it has always been, especially for full families, but they've not just upgraded the experience in terms of what kind of features they've added in, they've also upgraded just in how the overall experience is going to be, the touch and feel. Now once Rohan there, subscribe to Power Drift if you haven't already, gets done with his PTC, we show you the front end as well. Alright then, finally we come to the big highlight, that is the front row. So let's run through the features. Yes, you do have powered adjustment for the driver's seat, and a brand new feature, ventilated front seats. This is something that of course you also see with the Urban Cruiser Hyrider, so of course you would expect it to come up with the Innova Hycross as well. Now drop down over here, you can see there's the switch for the power tailgate. Yes, the steering is adjustable for both rake and reach. And once we get to the steering, take a look at these controls. No, your eyes do not deceive you. You do have proper ADAS over here. It's the first Toyota car in India to get the full suite of ADAS features, which includes adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, lane keeping aid, lane keeping assist, auto emergency braking, and the works. Now let's take a look at this digital instrument cluster that you get specifically with the hybrid, and you do have separate drive modes. So right now it's an eco, this is city or the normal mode, and you also have a power mode. And this is something you're going to be using to get the full force of what this powertrain is capable of. Remember, it's delivering a sub 10-second 0 to 100 kph time, at least as per Toyota's claim. Something we will test out during our first drive review if possible. Now here you have this 10-inch infotainment screen. Looks really good, and we're going to get a detailed walkthrough of that in the first drive review as well. Tapping the home button so you can swipe through the different controls over here. You have of course Apple CarPlay. The interface is sort of similar in terms of the fonts and colors that we've seen in past Toyota models, but it is pretty cool nonetheless. Now drop down over here, you will spot the aircon controls. You do have auto AC, which is a given, and interestingly the gear selector setup, as we mentioned before, this is only going to be offered with automatic transmissions. The center console integrated shifter, and over here you will spot the button for the surround view camera. As mentioned before, you do have auto hold, the different drive modes, EV mode that you will get with the hybrid, and this is the traction control off button. In the middle you'll spot these cup holders, and this is how the center storage opens up, and like we've seen in the Crysta, very generous. One thing over here that you will spot is the wireless phone charger that's been integrated into a very unique, but I must say sensible place, which is on top of the dashboard, or between the dashboard rather. And yes, if I'm not mistaken, this is not standard equipment even with the top end model. It will be an accessory, and like before we've seen in the second row, lots and lots of use of soft touch materials and leatherette padding all over the place to make sure that the cabin feels as premium as possible. And one thing that I have to mention specifically as someone who is quite tall, 6'5", is that the dashboard shape over here is a lot more sensible that we've seen in the Crysta as well. In the Crysta, there's a big sort of bulge over here which becomes difficult for people who are taller because the seating position is kind of high and your knee would land up fouling with the center console. That, as I've experienced with the Hycross, will not be a problem. Now let's get on to the outside and give you an overview of what else you're getting with this car and what you can expect when it comes to the pricing. And now we're going to end this video with a 4-point countdown. Number 1, the driver's seat that's powered, and it does come with 2 memory settings as well. Number 2, there is ambient lighting around the panoramic sunroof. Number 3, there is the one touch up down functionality for all 4 power windows. And number 4, the price. So this thing is expected to start around rupees 19.5 to 20 lakh ex showroom and go up to just under rupees 30 lakh ex showroom. For context, the Innova Crysta petrol, that is sitting between 18 and 24 lakhs ex showroom, and that is for the petrol. The diesel will be making a comeback with the Crysta, but what you need to do is 2 things. Number 1, first of all, hit subscribe if you haven't already. It just takes 1 second. And number 2, let me know, will you go for the petrol hybrid? Does that make more sense ecologically, financially, economically, whatever it is? Or would you rather wait for the Innova Crysta diesel? And of course, you can start a whole rear wheel drive versus front wheel drive battle in the comment section. But for now, signing off, goodbye, and more details on ZigWheels.com.